Smoke choked the valley like a living thing, thick and acrid, mixing with the sharp chemical smell of spent ammunition. The thump of mortar rounds hitting dirt sent tremors through Layla Trent's chest as she pressed herself flat against the scorched hillside. Below, in the kill zone, SEAL Team 6 was pinned down behind a collapsed stone wall that wouldn't hold much longer. Overwatch is down. Repeat, our primary sniper is down. The voice on the radio crackled with barely controlled panic. Staff Sergeant Marcus Reed, the team's sharpshooter for 3 tours, had taken a round through the shoulder. He was alive but out of action. Layla's fingers tightened on her M110 rifle. She was 200 meters behind the main element, positioned as backup, the backup nobody wanted, the insurance policy nobody believed they'd need. Lieutenant Commander Brett Mason's voice cut through the chaos. "We need eyes on that ridgeline. They've got at least 3 shooters up there picking us A." Layla keyed her radio. "Sir, I can move to Reed's position. I have the angle." Silence. Then, "Negative, Trent. Stay put." "Sir, with respect, I can—" I said negative. Mason's tone left no room for argument. "Hold your position." She could hear it in his voice. The same doubt she'd heard for 18 months. Too small. Too light. Too much of a risk when lives were on the line. Never mind that she'd outshot Reed in qualifications. Never mind her scores at the advanced sniper course. On paper, she was qualified. In their eyes, she was a liability. Another explosion rocked the valley floor. Specialist Jamie Ortega's voice screamed across the net. "We've got wounded. Anderson's hit. We need cover to get him out." Layla scanned through her scope. She could see the enemy sniper positions, now muzzle flashes from the cliff face, approximately 800 meters northeast. The SEALs were trapped in a horseshoe kill zone, exposed on 3 sides. Every second they stayed there, more rounds chewed up the dirt around them. Her training took over. Wind speed, 8 miles per hour, quartering right. Temperature, 93 degrees, air density thin at this altitude. Range, 820 meters to the nearest hostile position. She ran the calculations automatically, muscle memory from 10,000 practice rounds. Mason's voice again, strained now. "All units, prepare to bound back on my mark. We're getting shredded here." But Layla could see what he couldn't from his position. The withdrawal route was already covered. 2 more enemy shooters had moved into position along the wadi, their barrels glinting in the harsh Sunday. If the SEALs pulled back now, they'd run straight into a second ambush. She keyed her radio once more. "Sir, the exit is compromised. You've got hostiles at your 6 o'clock, approximately 600 meters. Can you confirm?" "Affirmative. 2 shooters, elevated position behind the boulder cluster." A pause. She heard him curse. Then, "Trent, can you engage?" It wasn't permission, it was desperation. But she'd take it, moving to position now. She didn't wait for acknowledgement. Layla low-crawled across the rocky slope, using the terrain the way her father had taught her back in Montana, hunting elk in the Beartooth Mountains. Sergeant Thomas Trent, Marine Corps scout sniper, retired, who'd put a rifle in her hands when she was 8 years old. Who'd taught her that size didn't matter if your fundamentals were perfect. She reached Reed's abandoned position, a small depression behind a cluster of sun-bleached rocks. Blood stained the dirt where he'd fallen. She settled in, deploying her bipod, checking her scope 0. The enemy sniper nest came into sharp focus, 2 figures visible, illy concealed behind sandbags. Layla controlled her breathing. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Heart rate slowing. The world narrowed to the circle of her scope, the crosshairs, the target. Wind pushed at her from the right. She adjusted her aim point, leading left by 3 feet. Range, 824 meters. Bullet drop, approximately 42 inches. She dialed her elevation turret, feeling each click. Below, a SEAL screamed as another burst of machine gun fire tore into their position. Layla found her natural respiratory pause, that moment between breaths where the body is most still. Her finger took up the slack on the trigger. The rifle bucked against her shoulder. Through the scope, she saw the enemy sniper's head snap back. He dropped from view. For one suspended moment, the battlefield seemed to hesitate, as if every fighter had collectively held their breath. Then Mason's voice, sharp with disbelief. "Confirm hit. Who took that shot?" "Trent," she replied calmly, already acquiring her second target, engaging hostile number 2. 14 years earlier, Bridger, Montana. The other kids at the junior shooting club watched 12-year-old Layla struggle to hold up the target rifle. It was an adult-sized weapon, nearly as long as she was tall, and her thin arms shook with the effort of keeping it steady. "Hey, Trent," called out Derek Pearson, a stocky 15-year-old who'd been shooting since he could walk. "Maybe you should try the BB gun first. That one's for actual shooters." Laughter rippled through the group. Even Coach Henderson cracked a smile before waving them quiet. Layla's face burned, but she didn't respond. She'd learned early that arguing just made it worse. Instead, she focused on what her father had taught her the night before, sitting on their cabin porch as the sun set over the mountains. "Size is just physics, kiddo," Thomas Trent had said, cleaning his old M40 rifle. "And physics can be managed. You know what can't be managed? An undisciplined mind. A shooter who can't control their ego or their emotions. Give me a small shooter with perfect fundamentals over a big shooter with bad habits any day." She settled into position, adjusting her stance to account for her height. The rifle was heavy, yes, but if she distributed the weight correctly, used the sling for support, locked her bones rather than relying on muscle. The first shot surprised even her. Dead center. "Lucky," Derek muttered. The second shot. Center again. The third, fourth, fifth, all within a 2-inch group at 50 yards. Coach Henderson walked over, examining the target with raised eyebrows. "Well, Miss Trent, seems you've been practicing." "Yes, sir. My dad. I know your father, Tom Trent, finest shot in his platoon back in the day." Henderson handed her the target. "Keep this up. You might have a future in marksmanship." But as she walked past the other kids, she heard the whispers. "Probably her dad shot those for her. Just wait until they're moving targets. She'll never make it in a real competition." Through middle school and high school, Layla proved them wrong over and over. She won the state junior championship 3 years running. She earned a spot on the junior ROTC rifle team. She maxed out every shooting qualification the Army offered in basic training. And still, they doubted. At the Army Marksmanship Unit selection course, Sergeant First Class Patricia Wong pulled her aside after the first day of trials. "Trent, you're shooting well, really well, but I need you to understand something. The infantry doesn't care about your feelings. When you're 5'4" and 120 pounds, they're going to question whether you can hump a 50-pound pack and a 20-pound rifle system through the mountains for days. They're going to wonder if you can drag a wounded soldier to safety. Fair or not, that's reality. I can do those things, Sergeant. I believe you can. The question is, will they give you the chance to prove it?" During the final qualification, Layla was paired with Captain Ryan Chandler for a stress shoot, a timed course where shooters had to engage multiple targets at varying distances while carrying full combat loads, and after completing a 2-mile run. Chandler was 6'3", 230 pounds of muscle, a former college linebacker who'd gone infantry officer. As they prepared to start, he looked down at her and shook his head. "This isn't going to work. You're going to slow me down, sir. If I can't keep up, you can leave me behind." He laughed. "Damn right I will." The run began. Layla had trained for this, had worked twice as hard as anyone else because she knew she'd have to be twice as good to be considered equal. Her legs burned, her lungs screamed, but she stayed on Chandler's shoulder the entire 2 miles. At the shooting line, while Chandler was still catching his breath, Layla had already dropped into position and engaged her first target. 500 meters, hit. 700 meters, hit. Moving target at 600 meters, she led it perfectly, the round catching the silhouette center mass. She finished 30 seconds before Chandler, with a higher score. He stared at her target, then at his own, then at her. "What the hell? How are you not winded?" "Efficient breathing, sir. And I don't carry extra weight that isn't functional." For a moment, she thought she saw respect in his eyes. Then he turned away. "Lucky shooting. Let's see you do it when people are shooting back." The C-130 carrying Layla to her new assignment landed at a forward operating base in the Kandahar province on a Tuesday afternoon that felt like being hit in the face with a hair dryer. She grabbed her duffel and rifle case, reporting to the Special Operations Compound on the north side of the base. Lieutenant Commander Mason was in the Tactical Operations Center, bent over a map with his team leaders. He barely glanced up when she entered. "Staff Sergeant Trent reporting as ordered, sir." Mason straightened, taking in her appearance with a quick, dismissive scan. "You're the sniper attachment?" "Yes, sir." "Huh." He returned his attention to the map. "Chief, show her where she can stow her gear. We'll do a qual shoot tomorrow." Chief Petty Officer Nathan Briggs, a grizzled veteran with 20 years in the teams, led her to a small hooch at the edge of the compound. "You can bunk here. Chow's at 1,800. Don't touch anyone's stuff, don't get in the way, and maybe you'll do okay. The next morning, the entire team assembled at the range. Layla noticed they'd all found reasons to be there, even the guys who had nothing to do with sniper operations. This was a test, she realized, not just of her shooting, but of whether they wanted her here at all. Mason stood beside the range tower, arms crossed. Trent, here's the deal. I need someone who can shoot, but more than that, I need someone I can trust when things go sideways. Someone who won't freeze up, won't second guess, won't become a liability when my guys' lives are on the line. I understand, sir. I don't think you do. His voice was flat, matter of fact. SEALs die when trust breaks down. We trust each other because we've been through hell together. You're an unknown variable, so yeah, you're going to have to prove yourself more than most. That's just how it is. She met his gaze. Then let me prove it, sir. The course they'd set up was brutal. Targets from 400 to 1,600 meters, some stationary, some moving. Wind was gusting 15 to 20 miles per hour, swirling in the valley. Heat mirage shimmered above the ground, making distant targets waver like mirages. Layla checked her equipment methodically. The M2010 enhanced sniper rifle they'd issued her was newer than what she'd trained on, but the fundamentals were the same. She dialed her scope, checked her databook, calculated her first shot. The team watched in silence as she engaged the 400-meter target. Clean hit, 600 meters. Hit, 800 meters, moving target. She let it just right hit. At 1,200 meters, the wind picked up. She waited, reading the mirage, watching the flags. The bullet arced through the air, fighting the crosswind. Hit. Okay, she can shoot, someone muttered. But Mason pointed to the final target. 1,600 meters. That's the one I care about. That's the one that saves lives or gets people killed. 1,600 meters. Over 9/10 of a mile. At this distance, she had to account for the Earth's rotation, the Coriolis effect. The bullet would be in the air for nearly 3 seconds, falling over 300 inches, drifting in the wind. A dozen variables, all of which had to be perfect. Layla settled into position. She recalculated everything, double-checking her data. The wind was the worst, gusty, unpredictable. She waited, watching the patterns, looking for a lull. There, a moment of relative calm. She broke the shot. Through the scope, she watched the bullet's trace. It seemed to hang in the air forever, fighting gravity and wind. Then, at the very edge of her vision, the target flipped backward, dead center. The range fell silent. Then Chief Briggs started clapping, slowly. Others joined in. Mason walked up to her position, studying the target through his binoculars. When he lowered them, his expression was unreadable. That was one shot, Trent. In perfect conditions, with no stress, no time pressure, nobody trying to kill you. Yes, sir. Don't expect this to be your ticket in. You'll still have to prove yourself every single day. I wouldn't expect anything less, sir. But as she cleaned her rifle, she heard 2 SEALs talking nearby. Did you see that shot? Yeah, but Reed could make that shot too. And he's got 3 tours with us. He's proven. She's just, I don't know. Man, it's hard to trust someone who looks like a strong wind could knock them over. Layla kept cleaning, kept her face neutral. But inside, frustration burned. How many perfect shots would it take? How many times did she have to prove the same thing? Her father's voice echoed in her memory. You're going to have to be better than good, sweetheart. You're going to have to be undeniable. The mission briefing took place in a sweltering plywood room that smelled of sweat and gun oil. Mason stood before a satellite image projected on the wall, a compound in the mountains, surrounded by rough terrain and steep valleys. Intelligence indicates this is a major weapons cache for the insurgent network operating in this province, Mason explained, tapping the image. Our job is to infiltrate, confirm the cache, and paint the target for an airstrike. Rules of engagement are tight: no civilian casualties, minimize our footprint. He turned to face the team. We insert via helo at dusk, 30 clicks north. Hike in overnight. Establish overwatch positions at dawn. Trent, his eyes found her. You'll be positioned here, on this ridgeline, 800 meters from the target compound. Your job is to provide early warning and long-range security. You are not to engage unless absolutely necessary or unless I give the order. Clear? Crystal clear, sir. Specialist Kyle Harrison, one of the team's breachers, raised his hand. Sir, with all respect, shouldn't Trent be closer to the main element? Reed usually stayed within 400 meters so he could provide immediate support. Mason nodded. Reed also has 50 pounds on Trent and 3 years of operating with us. I need her where she can observe without being a liability if we have to move fast. Layla kept her expression neutral, but the message was clear. They still didn't trust her to keep up, to be where the action was. Petty Officer First Class Miguel Santos caught her eye after the briefing. Don't take it personal, Trent. LT's just being cautious. First time out with a new shooter, he always plays it safe. I get it. Do you? Santos lowered his voice. Because I'm going to be straight with you. These guys, they've been through some bad things together. Lost people. Everyone here has had to drag a wounded buddy out of a kill zone at some point. When they look at you, they don't see your qualification scores. They see someone they might have to carry. That's just the truth. Then I'll prove I'm not dead weight. Santos smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. We all hope so. Because if things go bad and you freeze up, someone's coming home in a box. And that someone might be you, or it might be one of us trying to save you. The helicopter insertion went smoothly. They landed in a rocky clearing as the sun touched the horizon, painting the mountains in shades of amber and crimson. Layla shouldered her pack 62 pounds including water, ammunition, survival gear, and her rifle system and fell into position at the rear of the patrol. The hike was everything she'd trained for and worse. The terrain was vertical, covered in loose scree that slid under every step. The heat of the day had baked into the rocks, radiating back even as night fell. Her legs burned, her shoulders ached where the pack straps dug in. Ahead of her, Harrison muttered to Santos, $10 says she asks for a break before we hit the first waypoint. Nah, she's got something to prove. She'll keep going until she drops. Layla gritted her teeth and kept pace. They weren't wrong, she did have something to prove, but they were wrong about her. She wouldn't drop. Her father had made her hike 30-mile days in the Montana wilderness, carrying a pack that was proportionally heavier than what she carried now. Pain was just information. You acknowledged it and moved on. They reached the Overwatch position 3 hours before dawn. Layla immediately began setting up her hide, a small depression behind a cluster of boulders that gave her a perfect view of the valley below and the target compound in the distance. Mason came by to check her position. You good? Yes, sir. Clear line of sight to target. Multiple fallback routes if compromised, solid cover from counterfire. He studied her setup, then nodded. Comm check every 30 minutes. If you see anything off, anything at all, you call it in immediately. Don't wait to be sure. Roger that, sir. As he turned to leave, she heard him mutter to Chief Briggs, well, at least she knows how to set up a hide. Damning with faint praise, LT, just being realistic. One decent hike doesn't make her one of us. Dawn broke slowly over the mountains, revealing the valley in stages, first the peaks, then the ridgelines, finally the compound itself. Through her scope, Layla could see guards patrolling, vehicles parked haphazardly, and most importantly, stacks of crates being moved in and out of a large building. She keyed her radio. Overwatch to actual. I have eyes on multiple individuals moving cargo in and out of structure number 3. Confirming unusual activity. Copy. Overwatch. Keep watching. For 2 hours, nothing changed. The sun climbed higher, baking everything beneath it. Layla sipped water sparingly, controlling her breathing to stay cool. She watched the compound, watched the approaches, watched everything. Then she saw them, high on the ridgeline opposite her position, nearly 2,000 meters away. A glint of light. Then another, sun reflecting off glass optics or rifle scopes. Her pulse quickened. She adjusted her scope's magnification, scanning carefully. Their movement. At least 2 individuals, possibly 3, setting up firing positions with a clear view of the valley approaches. Overwatch to actual. I have possible hostile observation post on ridgeline Delta 7, approximately 2,000 meters northeast of the target. Recommend we confirm before you move into the valley. A pause. Then Mason's voice. Can you confirm hostile? Could be locals. Layla studied them through her scope. Negative ID on hostile, but they're establishing what looks like a sniper hide, and their position covers all our approach routes. Pattern of life doesn't match shepherds or civilians. Another pause. She could almost hear the calculation in Mason's head, trust the new shooter's assessment or assume she was being overcautious. Actual to Overwatch. Maintain observation but hold position. We're proceeding with insertion. Layla watched helplessly as the SEAL element began moving down into the valley. The figures on the far ridgeline adjusted their positions, tracking the team's movement. She keyed the radio again. Sir, they're tracking you. They know you're there. Overwatch, we need confirmation of hostile intent before we abort. Do they have weapons? Layla strained to see through her scope. At 2,000 meters, details were hard to distinguish, especially through the heat shimmer. But then one of the figures shifted, and she caught the unmistakable profile of a rifle with a long-range scope. Confirmed weapons. They're armed and in Overwatch positions. Before Mason could respond, the valley erupted in gunfire. The first mortar round hit 30 meters from the lead seal element, sending up a geyser of dirt and stone. Before the debris finished falling, machine gun fire opened up from 3 positions, 2 flanking the valley walls, 1 dead ahead near the compound. Contact. Contact. Multiple hostile positions. Mason's voice on the radio was controlled but urgent. All elements, find cover. Overwatch, where are those shooters? Layla was already scanning, her heart pounding but her hands steady. I have muzzle flashes from 3 positions: 2 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 12 o'clock from your position. The sniper element on the ridgeline is engaging. I see 4 correction. 5 separate shooters on that ridgeline. The SEALs had managed to reach AIL berm, but it was inadequate cover. Rounds snapped overhead, ricocheted off rocks, kicked up dust all around them. They were in a kill zone, exactly what they'd tried to avoid. We need suppressive fire on those ridge positions, Mason ordered. Reed, the primary sniper, moved up to engage. Layla watched through her scope as he took his position, began to line up a shot. Then she saw the muzzle flash from the enemy ridgeline, heard the crack of the round, and Reed spun backward, his shoulder exploding in red mist. Overwatch is down, someone screamed. Reed's hit. The battlefield seemed to slow down for Layla. She could see the pattern now. This wasn't a hasty ambush. It was a carefully planned kill zone. The enemy had known they were coming, had prepared positions, had their own sniper element ready to eliminate the SEAL's long-range capability first. We're pinned down. Santos's voice cracked over the radio. We can't move without getting cut to pieces. Mason was trying to organize a tactical withdrawal, but Layla could see what he couldn't from his position in the valley. The enemy had moved 2 more elements into blocking positions along the withdrawal route. If the SEALs pulled back now, they'd retreat directly into another ambush. She keyed her radio, her voice calm despite the chaos. Actual, Overwatch. Your egress route is compromised. I count 6 to 8 hostiles with crew-served weapons blocking your withdrawal path, approximately 800 meters west of your position. Can you confirm? Affirmative. They're setting up right now. If you pull back, you'll hit a second kill zone. The silence that followed told her everything. They were trapped, pinned down by overwhelming fire from 3 sides, with their escape route blocked and their primary sniper out of action. Mason's voice when it came back was quiet, almost resigned. Trent, can you engage those blocking positions? Affirmative, sir. I have the angle. Another pause. She could imagine what he was thinking. Trusting her with this, with their lives, was a gamble. But he was out of options. Engage at will. Clear us a path. But Layla was already looking at the bigger problem. The blocking positions were important, but the ridge shooters were the immediate threat, systematically tearing the SEAL's position. Every few seconds, another burst of precision fire would send the team scrambling, pinning them down, preventing them from organizing any kind of response. She made a tactical decision. Sir, request permission to engage ridge positions first. They're the immediate threat to your survival. Negative. We need the blocking positions cleared so we can withdraw. Sir, she tried to find the words to explain the tactical situation, but there wasn't time. Another SEAL screamed as rounds chewed up the dirt inches from his position. Then Harrison's voice, panicked. Anderson's hit. We've got a man down. We need to get out of here now. Layla made her choice. She'd deal with the consequences later if she survived. Engaging ridge positions, she announced, and shifted her aim. The first hostile was the easiest. He was highly exposed, confidently firing from a position he thought was out of range of any return fire. Range, 1,860 meters. Wind, 12 miles per hour, quartering from the left. Temperature, 97 degrees Fahrenheit. Altitude, 6,000 feet. Layla's mind processed all of it in seconds, years of training collapsing into pure calculation. She adjusted her scope, found her breathing rhythm, and broke the shot. The rifle's recoil pushed back against her shoulder, familiar and controlled. Through the scope, she watched the enemy sniper jerk backward and disappear behind his cover. One down. The second shooter had seen his nerve fall and was scrambling to change position. Moving target, 800 meters farther than the first, now airily obscured by a boulder. Layla tracked his movement, predicted where he'd emerge, and fired the moment his torso came into view. He dropped. What the someone on the seal net began. But Layla was already transitioning to target 3. This one was smart, had good field craft. He'd seen 2 of his fellow shooters go down and had correctly identified the general direction of the threat. He was pulling back into better cover, presenting only the smallest possible target, his head and shoulders visible for bare seconds at a time. Layla waited. Patience was of the craft. Her father's voice. A good sniper knows when to shoot. A great sniper knows when to wait. The hostile popped up to take a shot at the pinned seals. Layla squeezed her trigger before he could fire. The man's rifle tumbled from his hands as he collapsed. Confirm. Overwatch, those were your shots? Mason's voice held something new. Surprise. Maybe. Or the beginning of respect. Affirmative. 3 hostiles neutralized on the ridgeline. Below, the SEALs were using the sudden reduction in fire to improve their positions. Chief Briggs dragged Anderson behind better cover while Santos laid down, suppressing fire on the machine gun positions. But Layla's scope had found a new problem. The remaining enemy shooters on the ridgeline had figured out her position. She saw muzzle flashes orienting toward her, saw dust kicks near her hide as rounds began to walk in on her location. She rolled left, scrambling behind a different boulder cluster. A round sparked off the rock where her head had been seconds before, sending stone chips flying. Taking effective fire, she reported calmly, even as her heart hammered. Adjusting position. The enemy had 2 shooters left on the ridgeline, both in excellent positions with good cover. They were working together now, one firing to pin her while the other maneuvered. Professional, dangerous. Layla low-crawled to a new position 15 meters away, using the terrain to mask her movement. She could hear rounds cracking overhead, the enemy trying to suppress her. But they'd made a mistake. They were firing at her last position, giving away their locations. She spotted the first one, caught him in the act of reloading. The range was over 2,000 meters now, shooting at a target on higher ground than her position, wind variable and gusty. It was a shot that most shooters wouldn't even attempt. Layla built the firing solution in her mind. Range 2,100 meters, elevation 23 degrees, wind deflection approximately 6 feet right. She dialed her scope, steadied her breathing, found that perfect moment of stillness between heartbeats. The shot broke clean. 2 seconds later, the enemy shooter fell. The last hostile on the ridgeline went still, realizing he was now alone and outmatched. Layla watched him through her scope, saw him trying to decide whether to fight or flee. The decision was made for him when Chief Briggs, seizing the momentum, launched a grenade that detonated near his position. The shooter broke cover, running. Layla tracked him smoothly, leading the movement, and fired. The man tumbled down the rocky slope and didn't move. Ridge positions clear, she reported. 5 hostiles neutralized. The SEAL net exploded with chatter. Did she just? 5 shots. 5 kills at over. Mason, we need to. All call signs, maintain discipline. Mason cut through the noise. But even his voice had changed. Overwatch, solid shooting. Now we need those blocking positions cleared so we can extract. Roger that. Actual. Engaging now. The blocking positions were closer, but presented different challenges. They were dug in, had crew-served weapons, and were actively maneuvering to tighten the trap. Layla identified 8 targets, 4 of whom were critical: the machine gunners and their team leaders. She started with the most dangerous. A PKM gunner in a fortified position with a perfect enfilade on the SEAL's withdrawal route. Range, 840 meters. The gunner was highly protected by sandbags, exposing only his head and shoulders. Layla aimed for the center of visible mass and fired. The gunner slumped forward over his weapon. She shifted to the second machine gun position without pausing. The gunner there was scrambling to depress his weapon, to bring Layla's position under fire. She beat him to it by half a second. He fell sideways, his assistant scrambling away in panic. "Path is opening," Mason said, urgency replacing the shock in his voice. "All elements, prepare to bound on my mark." But Layla saw the final piece of the puzzle, the commander of the blocking element, trying to reposition his remaining troops to maintain the ambush. If he succeeded, the SEALs would still be in danger. She found him through her scope, a man in slightly better gear than the others, gesturing and shouting orders. Range, 900 meters. He was moving, making it harder. But he was also focused on his troops, not watching for threats. Layla led him by 3 feet, broke the shot, and watched him drop. Without their commander, the blocking element's coordination collapsed. Some held their positions, but others began pulling back, the cohesion gone. Path is clear. Actual. Recommend immediate extraction. Copy that. All elements. Bounding Overwatch. Move now. The SEALs executed their withdrawal with professional precision, each fire team covering the others as they pulled back. Layla kept her scope on the battlefield, watching for new threats, calling out targets of opportunity, guiding them around danger areas. Group of 3 hostiles moving to flank, 10 o'clock from your position, she called. Recommend alter route to the right. Overwatch. Can you engage? Negative, sir. They're in defilade from my position. Then get your ass down here and join us. We're not leaving you behind. Something in Layla's chest loosened at those words. She quickly broke down her position, shouldered her rifle, and began moving down the slope toward the rally point. Behind her, the valley was still echoing with sporadic gunfire, but the intensity had dropped. The ambush had failed. The SEALs were getting out, and she had made the difference. The rally point was a dried riverbed 2 clicks from the kill zone, offering concealment and good defensive positions if they needed to make a stand. Layla arrived to find the team establishing security, treating wounds, and conducting a hasty damage assessment. Anderson had a through and through in his thigh, painful but survivable. Reed's shoulder was worse. The bone shattered, but the medic had stopped the bleeding and stabilized him. 2 others had minor shrapnel wounds. All things considered, they'd been lucky. Mason was on the radio coordinating their extraction when Layla arrived. He glanced at her, gave a curt nod, then returned to his conversation with command. Chief Briggs walked over, his expression unreadable. Hell of a shooting display, Trent. Just doing my job, Chief. Yeah, well, your job just saved all our asses. He held out his hand. I owe you an apology. We all do. She shook his hand, unsure what to say. Santos jogged over, grinning despite the blood on his face from a superficial scalp wound. Trent, that shot on the moving target, how far was that? About 2,000 meters. 2,000. He shook his head in disbelief. And you made it look easy. It wasn't easy. I got lucky with the wind. Lucky my ass. That was world-class shooting. Others were gathering now. The SEALs who'd been most skeptical about her. Harrison, who'd bet she'd ask for a break on the hike. Petty Officer Second Class James Mitchell, who'd loudly questioned why they needed a female sniper attached to the team. Even wounded Anderson, limping over on Santos's shoulder. I heard the radio chatter, Anderson said. You disobeyed orders to engage those ridge positions. Layla stiffened. Yes, I made a tactical judgment that saved my life. Anderson cut her off. If those shooters had kept us pinned for another 30 seconds, I'd have bled out. So yeah, you disobeyed orders, and I'm damn grateful you did. Mason finished his radio call and walked over to the group. Extractions inbound, ETA 20 minutes. We hold here until then. His eyes found Layla. Trent, a word. She followed him a short distance from the others, expecting a reprimand for not following his initial order. Instead, Mason said, I was wrong. She blinked. Sir, I was wrong about you. About what you could do. About whether we could trust you. He looked back at his team, then at her. I put you on that ridgeline because I didn't think you were ready to operate with us. I thought you'd be a liability in close. I was protecting my team from what I saw as a weak link. Sir, I understand the reasoning. Let me finish. His voice was firm but not harsh. You proved me wrong in every way possible. Not just the shooting that was exceptional, by the way, but the tactical awareness. You saw that second ambush before any of us. You made the right call about engaging the ridge positions even when I told you not to. You thought like a SEAL, and you saved us like a SEAL. He extended his hand. So, I'm saying it officially. I was wrong. You're not a liability. You're an asset. And if you're willing to keep working with this team, we'd be honored to have you. Layla shook his hand, fighting to keep her emotions in check. I'd be honored to stay, sir. As they walked back to the group, Chief Briggs was talking to Santos. We need a call sign for her. Can't keep using Overwatch. Something about those precision shots, Santos mused. Like she was sewing thread through needle eyes at 2,000 meters. Ghost needle, Mitchell suggested, because those hostiles never saw her coming and every shot was surgical. The name rippled through the group. tested on tongues, and stuck. By the time the extraction helicopters thundered into view, it was official. Layla Trent, Ghost Needle. 3 weeks later, the team was back in the mountains on a similar mission overwatch and reconnaissance of a suspected high-value target meeting. The difference this time was that nobody questioned Layla's position. Mason had her set up in the primary sniper hide, the most critical position, with full authority to engage threats at her discretion. The first 2 days were quiet. They observed, took photos, intercepted communications, standard intelligence gathering. But on the third morning, as the sun was just touching the peaks, Layla saw something that made her blood run cold. Through her scope, scanning the surrounding ridgelines as she did every 20 minutes, she caught a glint of light from a position nearly 3,000 meters away. It wasn't the sun reflecting off rock or glass. It was too steady, too purposeful. Someone was watching them through a scope. She keyed her radio, keeping her voice low and calm. All call signs, possible hostile observer on ridgeline November 23, bearing 045 from my position, extreme range. Mason's response was immediate. Can you confirm hostile? Not yet. But the position is too good to be coincidence. They have overwatch on our entire operational area. For the next 10 minutes, Layla watched. The glint moved occasionally, someone adjusting their position, scanning. Professional movements, not the random sweeps of a curious civilian. Then she saw the shot. Not the impact, she saw the muzzle flash, distant but unmistakable. Half a second later, a round cracked overhead, missing her position by less than a meter. Stone chips exploded from the rock beside her head. Contact, hostile sniper, extreme range. She was already rolling to a new position as another round sparked off the boulder where she'd been lying. The SEAL element below scrambled for cover as more rounds began dropping into their position with disturbing accuracy. This wasn't random fire or suppressive shooting. This was precision work from someone who knew exactly what they were doing. Ghost Needle, can you engage? Mason shouted over the chaos. Layla had reached a secondary position 40 meters from her original hide. Through her scope, she could barely make out the enemy position, a nest of rocks and shadow on a distant ridgeline that would be invisible to most shooters. The range was extreme, beyond what most sniper systems could effectively engage. But she'd seen the shots. Whoever this was, they were shooting accurately at 3,000 meters. That meant exceptional equipment, exceptional training, and exceptional skill. I can engage, but I need time to calculate the shot. And the second I fire, he'll know exactly where I am. Then you'd better not miss. Layla pulled out her data book, began building the firing solution. Range, 2,900 meters. Wind, variable, gusting between 8 and 15 miles per hour. Temperature rising with the sun, creating mirage and heat shimmer. Elevation difference, nearly 300 feet. At this distance, she had to account for factors that most shooters never considered: the Coriolis effect from Earth's rotation, the spin drift of the bullet, even the air density variance between her position and the target. She made her best guess, dialed her scope, and prepared to fire. Then another round cracked past, this one even closer. The enemy sniper was systematically searching for her new position, working grid by grid, and he was getting close. Layla steadied her breathing, found her natural pause, and broke the shot. Through the scope, she watched the bullet's trace arc across the valley. 2.5 seconds of flight time. Then she saw the impact stone chips flying from the boulder the enemy was using for cover. Close, but not close enough. The enemy sniper's response was immediate. His next round hit 6 inches from Layla's head. He'd marked her position from her muzzle flash. Now it was a duel. She scrambled to yet another position as rounds began to systematically destroy her last hide. This shooter was good, better than good. Every shot was walking closer to where she might have moved, anticipating her actions. Ghost Needle, talk to me. Mason sounded worried now. Engaged with hostile sniper. He's marked my position and he's very, very good. Can you get a shot? Working on it. But the enemy had gone quiet. No more shots. No movement visible through her scope. He was repositioning, just as she had. They were playing the same game now, cat and mouse at extreme range, both knowing that the next shot that connected would probably be the last shot of the duel. Layla forced herself to think tactically. The enemy had fired at least 8 rounds. If he was using a similar magazine capacity to her own, he'd need to reload soon. Or he was already moving to a better position, trying to flank her. She scanned methodically, looking for the small signs: disturbed dust, movement of shadow, the glint of optics. There. a flicker of motion on a ridgeline 200 meters lateral from his first position. He was good. He'd moved to a position that gave him a slightly better angle on her likely hiding spots. But in moving, he'd exposed himself for just a moment. Layla adjusted her aim, led the position where she thought he'd set up, and waited. Patience. The shot would come if she could just... There. A shape resolving through the heat mirage, the distinctive outline of a scope and rifle. She fired before he could settle. This time, through the shimmer and distance, she saw the impact. The enemy sniper jerked backward, and his rifle tumbled down the rocky slope. The valley fell silent, except for the wind. "Hostile sniper down," Layla reported, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I think." "You think?" "Sir, at this range, I can't confirm the kill. But he's not shooting anymore." Chief Briggs's voice came over the net, speaking to the team. "That, gentlemen, is why we have Ghost Needle on Overwatch. Whoever that hostile was, he was the best they had, and she beat him." Later, after they'd extracted and intelligence had identified the enemy sniper, Layla learned that she'd been dueling with a man known as the Falcon, a former military sniper credited with over 40 kills against coalition forces, considered one of the most dangerous marksmen in the region. Mason showed her the intelligence report. This guy was legendary. Multiple teams had tried to take him out. He always disappeared before they could pin him down. Layla studied the photo of the man she'd shot. Middle-aged, weathered face, eyes that had seen too much. A warrior, like her, who'd chosen the wrong side but had deserved respect for his skill nonetheless. "You okay?" Mason asked quietly. "Yeah, I'm okay." And she was. This was the reality of her profession. Sometimes the only way to protect her team was to be better than the other side's best. "For what it's worth," Mason said, "I'm glad you were on our side." The extraction helicopter banked over the mountains as the sun set, painting the peaks in gold and crimson. Inside the cargo bay, the SEAL team was uncharacteristically quiet, each man lost in his own thoughts about how close they'd come to disaster. Layla sat near the crew chief's station, her rifle secured beside her, watching the landscape scroll by below. 3 months ago, these men had doubted her. Now they treated her like one of their own, because she had become one of their own. Mason made his way back through the helicopter, dropped into the seat beside her. He had to shout over the rotor noise. "When we get back, I'm putting you in for a commendation." She shook her head. "Not necessary, sir. Just doing my job." "The hell it's not necessary." He pulled out a notepad, showed her what he'd already written. A detailed account of her actions over the past 3 months, the lives saved, the threats eliminated. "You've earned this, Trent. And more importantly, my team deserves to know that command recognizes what you've done for us." When they landed at the forward operating base, Layla expected the usual routine debrief, clean weapons, get some food and sleep. Instead, she found the Special Operations compound filled with personnel. Word had spread about the duel with the Falcon, and apparently everyone wanted to see the sniper who'd beaten the legendary enemy shooter. Chief Briggs pulled her aside. "Fair warning, you're about to become famous in a very small, very classified community. Every special operations unit in theater is going to want you for their missions. I just want to stay with the team, Chief." He grinned. "That's what I told LT you'd say." "Good, because we're not letting you go anywhere." The debrief took 3 hours. Intelligence officers wanted every detail of the engagement with the Falcon ranges, conditions, his tactics, her decision-making process. They recorded everything, analyzing it for training purposes and to understand how such extreme-range sniper engagements could be won. Afterward, Mason gathered the team in their compound's common area. Anderson was there, shipped back from the hospital, his legs still bandaged but healing well. Reed had returned too, his shoulder immobilized but insisting on being present. "I want everyone to hear this officially," Mason began. "Staff Sergeant Layla Trent, callsign Ghost Needle, has been with us for 3 months. In that time, she has dissipated in 7 operations, eliminated 23 confirmed enemy combatants, saved the lives of multiple team members, and conducted the longest-range confirmed kill by any sniper attached to this team." He paused, looking around at his men. "When she first arrived, I didn't trust her. I thought she was a risk, that her size and experience made her a liability. I was wrong, completely, totally wrong." The team was silent, everyone listening. "I was wrong," Mason continued, "because I judged her on things that don't matter. I looked at her size instead of her skill. I focused on her lack of SEAL experience instead of her tactical intelligence. I worried about whether she could keep up instead of recognizing that she was already ahead of us. He turned to Layla. You've proven yourself beyond any doubt. You've earned your place here not because we were being nice or trying to be progressive. You earned it because you're one of the best shooters I've ever worked with. Period. The team erupted in applause. But Mason held up a hand. More than that, you've taught us something important. You've shown us that our assumptions about who can do this job, about what makes someone an asset or a liability, those assumptions can be wrong. And when we let those assumptions cloud our judgment, we risk missing out on truly exceptional operators. He produced a unit coin, a special recognition given only to SEALs and those who truly earned their respect. This isn't official, Trent. Your chain of command will have their own recognition. But this is from us, from the team. Welcome to the family. Layla took the coin, feeling the weight of it, the meaning behind it. She'd held herself together through firefights and doubt and endless skepticism, but this threatened to break through her composure. Thank you, sir. All of you. Her voice caught. I just wanted to do my job, to prove that I belonged here. You proved a hell of a lot more than that, Reed said from his seat. His voice was rough, still recovering, but sincere. You proved that the best person for the job is whoever can do it best. End of story. Santos raised a bottle of water and toast. To Ghost Needle, the sniper who shut us all up. The team laughed, and the tension broke. They spent the evening swapping stories, analyzing their missions, planning for the next one. And through it all, Layla was no longer the outsider being tested. She was simply of the team. Later, as the gathering wound down, Chief Briggs sat beside her. You know what the best is? What's that, Chief? There are thousands of young shooters out there, men and women who've been told they're too small, too weak, too whatever. They've been counted out before they ever got a chance. He nodded toward the compound. Now they've got proof that those judgments are bullshit. You did that. I just wanted to be a good sniper. And you are. But you're also an example now, whether you wanted to be or not. So when some instructor tells a recruit they can't hack it because they don't fit the usual mold, there's going to be someone who remembers Ghost Needle. Someone who'll say, maybe we should give them a chance to prove themselves. 6 months later, Layla stood in front of a classroom at the U.S. Army Sniper School in Fort Benning, Georgia. 40 students sat before her, men and women from every branch of service, every background, every body type imaginable. Some looked confident, others looked uncertain, like they weren't sure they belonged there. She knew that feeling intimately. My name is Staff Sergeant Layla Trent, she began. Call sign Ghost Needle. I'm here to talk to you about long-range precision shooting, but more importantly, about mindset. She clicked a remote, and a satellite image appeared on the screen behind her, the valley where she'd saved the SEAL team, marked with distances and firing positions. This was my 3rd month working with a SEAL team. We walked into an ambush, our primary sniper was hit, and suddenly I was the only long-range capability the team had. The shooters I needed to eliminate were positioned between 800 and 3,000 meters away, in variable wind, extreme heat, and I was taking effective counterfire the entire time. She let that sink in, watching the students' faces. Before that mission, most of the team didn't trust me. They thought I was too small, too inexperienced, too much of a risk. And you know what? I understood their doubt. I'd spent my entire career dealing with people who looked at my size and made assumptions about my capability. A young woman in the 3rd row, barely 5 feet tall, was leaning forward, listening intently. Layla made eye contact with her. So how did I overcome that doubt? Not by arguing or complaining. Not by demanding that people respect me. I overcame it by being undeniable. By making sure that when it mattered most, when lives were on the line, I could deliver exactly what was needed. She advanced to the next slide, a technical breakdown of extreme range shooting fundamentals. This course will teach you the technical skills: ballistics, meteorology, reading terrain, calculating firing solutions. All of that is essential, but it's not enough. Technical skills will make you a competent sniper. What makes you an exceptional sniper, what makes you someone your team will trust with their lives, is mental discipline. She spent the next hour walking them through the technical details of her engagements, but always bringing it back to mindset, the patience to wait for the right shot, the confidence to trust your calculations under pressure, the humility to keep learning from every miss, the resilience to handle doubt and criticism and keep performing anyway. When the formal presentation ended, she opened the floor for questions. Hands shot up immediately. A young Marine corporal asked, "How did you deal with the mental pressure of knowing that if you missed, SEALs would die. I compartmentalized, Layla answered. In the moment, I couldn't think about the consequences. I could only focus on the fundamentals: breathing, position, trigger control, the technical aspects that I'd practiced 10,000 times. Trust your training, because in crisis, you won't rise to the occasion. You'll default to your level of training. An army specialist, did you ever want to quit when people kept doubting you? Every day for the first 6 months of my career, the admission brought surprised looks, but quitting wouldn't prove them wrong. And more importantly, it wouldn't help all the future snipers who'd face the same doubts. So I kept showing up, kept performing, kept pushing to be better. The short woman from the third row raised her hand. Did it get easier after you proved yourself? Layla considered the question carefully. Yes and no. After that mission, the SEALs I worked with trusted me completely. But then I'd go to a new unit, and I'd have to prove myself all over again. The difference was that I had confidence now. I knew what I could do, so their doubt didn't shake me the way it used to. She looked around the classroom, making eye contact with as many students as possible. Here's what I want you to understand. Some of you will face doubt because of your size, your gender, your background, your youth. Some of you will face it because you don't fit someone's mental image of what a sniper should look like. That doubt will never fully go away. She paused, letting the hard truth settle. But what you can control is your response to it. You can let it defeat you, or you can let it motivate you. You can use it as an excuse, or you can use it as fuel. And if you choose the latter, if you commit to being so good that doubt becomes irrelevant, then you'll not only prove yourself, you'll make it easier for everyone who comes after you. After the class, the short woman approached her. Staff Sergeant Trent, I'm Private Emma Chen. I just want to say, thank you. My drill instructor told me last week that I should consider a different MOS because snipers need to be bigger. After hearing you today, I know I'm not changing anything. Layla smiled. What's your longest confirmed hit in training so far? 600 meters, Staff Sergeant. And how did you shoot compared to the bigger recruits? I outscored most of them. Chen's voice carried quiet pride. Then you're already proving what matters. Keep working, keep pushing, and don't let anyone's preconceptions determine your limits. That evening, Layla sat in her temporary quarters, reviewing her notes from the class. Her phone buzzed a text from Chief Briggs. Asterisk. Heard you killed it at Benning. Students are already sharing clips of your presentation. You're going to inspire a generation of shooters. The team's proud of you, Ghost Needle. Asterisk. She smiled and typed back, asterisk, just paying it forward, Chief, someone has to show them it's possible. Asterisk. Another message came through, this one from Mason. Asterisk. Question for you. We've got a new mission coming up, could really use your expertise. Think you've had enough of teaching? Asterisk. Layla didn't hesitate. Asterisk. When do we leave? Asterisk. Because this was who she was now. Not just a sniper who'd overcome doubt. Not just Ghost Needle, the operator with the legendary extreme range kills. She was a SEAL team asset, a teacher, an example. She was proof that excellence transcends expectations. She was the girl they'd said was too small, who'd become the shooter nobody could ignore. And she was just getting started. The official after-action report filed by Lieutenant Commander Brett Mason was classified, but portions were later declassified for training purposes. It read, in asterisk SSG, Trent's performance during Operation Scorpion Nest was exemplary in every respect. Her tactical awareness prevented significant friendly casualties when she identified enemy blocking positions that would have trapped the element during withdrawal. Her marksmanship, under combat conditions, was exceptional, with 8 confirmed enemy kills at ranges between 800 and 2,900 meters in variable wind conditions, while under effective enemy fire. Asterisk. Most significantly, SSG Trent demonstrated the judgment and courage to make critical tactical decisions when the situation required immediate action. Her initiative in engaging ridge positions before being ordered to do so arguably saved the lives of every member of the SEAL element. Asterisk SSG. Trent has earned the complete confidence and respect of every team member. She is recommended for the Bronze Star with Valor device and should be considered a high-value asset for future joint operations. Asterisk. The commendation was approved. The medal was awarded in a quiet ceremony attended only by her team and her father, Sergeant Thomas Trent, USMC. Rhett, who had tears in his eyes as he watched his daughter receive recognition for doing exactly what he'd always known she could do. But for Layla, the real reward came 3 weeks later, when Private Chen sent her a photo. The young woman was on a range, prone behind a rifle, with a target marker in the foreground, 1,000 meters. Dead center, the message with the photo read, "Asterisk, thank you for showing me it was possible. Now I'm showing the next person." Asterisk. That, Layla thought, was worth more than any medal. The cycle continued. The proof multiplied, and somewhere, in some training facility or operational unit, another soldier who'd been told they were too small was refusing to accept that limitation. Because Ghost Needle had shown them the truth, it was never about size. It was always about skill, determination, and the refusal to let anyone else define your limits. That was the real legacy. And it would outlast any single mission or commendation. It would outlast even Ghost Needle herself.